Does give YouTube a moment to tell people, and we'll see how we do. Let me know if you can see this, but I think we should be working. Usually it just takes YouTube a moment to get this started. But I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. Welcome to another live video here on YouTube. This video will be kind of a continuation of the previous video I did where I was talking about how I speak without translating. So this is kind of connected with that, and I want to show a bit more in detail how I do this. Look at that, people, nice to see you there, everybody. Let's see, we got Annette George at Tsubasa Rolla, nice to see you there. All right, I'm glad we are working, even though I can't see it on my end. So let me erase the title, and we'll get started. So I often get questions about how I develop fluency and basically what we do, like in Fluent for Life. Wow, this stuff is this really doesn't want to come off. But it's good exercise. Anyway, all right. Just keep get the eraser off as quickly as possible. Okay, I will keep my eye on chat as usual, but I wanted to get through this, so the beginning of the video will be more of the lesson, the educational portion, and then if people have questions, I will try to answer those connected with what I'm talking about. And if you have unrelated questions, I'll save those for the end. So if you do have questions, go ahead and post them, and I will take a look. I'm like losing my breath here, trying to have to catch my breath, trying to erase this stuff over here. All right, I think we should be working though. So I wanted to tell just a quick story, as I usually do at the beginning of this video. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about me learning Japanese, because this is a part of this example about how I get fluent, and this is the same way I teach learners. But I think the example should make more sense and show you how you can become fluent faster depending on how you learn. So the basic idea, I'll just tell you, I'm going to write this in English. I'll use a little bit of Japanese as well, because most people probably won't know Japanese watching this, but you'll understand a little bit of Japanese from seeing the example. So many years ago, I've been in Japan for 20 years, I think, but many years ago I learned the word, I'm going to draw a picture of this rather than try to give you a definition, help you understand this a little bit better. If I can draw a picture well of this thing here, I'm going to try to draw this well. You can kind of imagine, actually this is not going to be a very good a very good drawing at all, but we're going to have some water coming out of this, and you can imagine washing your hands under this thing. In English, the English word for this is a faucet, if you don't know that already. So the faucet refers to this specific thing right here where the water is coming out. And I learned the Japanese word for this. I'm going to write the Japanese word in English just so you can read it. But this is jaguchi. So I learned this word many years ago, but then something interesting happened maybe 2 or 3 days ago when I was at it was just like a hot spring bath, and I saw a water fountain. So this kind of like a kind of old style standing water fountain. It has a pedal on the bottom so you can push a button, and then there's the little water like part that comes out here and shoots the water out that way, like a regular drinking fountain. And there was a sign on it that said, like, don't put your mouth on the jaguchi. But up until this point, I did not know the kanji character for jaguchi, but I learned it from this drinking fountain. So I'm going to write it for you here, just because it's kind of an interesting story, and it shows you how these connections work and how connections are a big part of developing fluency. Not only being able to learn things in the language you're learning, so if you're learning English, you want to be learning English in English, but like I'm learning Japanese in Japanese, and I'm able to learn it this way so I don't translate when I speak, and I'm able to develop fluency faster. So I'm not going to write the whole sign down that I saw, but what I saw was really interesting. So I'll just give you just the character here for it. So this is the character. I saw this. And when I saw that, again, I did not know, like I knew the word jaguchi, but I did not know the kanji for it. So this is the Chinese character that means the same thing. So I was like, oh wow, look at that. Isn't that interesting? Like, I bet that means jaguchi. And the character for this is the character for snake. And this is the character for mouth. Isn't that interesting? So just like this, it kind of looks like, you can imagine it's almost like a little snake, like a little snake head, some kind of long neck, and the water is coming out. So the same way a snake might be like, yeah, so Tom's got it right there, the same kanji character. If you can read it a little bit better, jaguchi means a faucet in Japanese. And so I thought that was really interesting because I did not know the kanji for this word before I saw it. There are many words that I know that I just don't know the kanji for, or maybe I do, but I've never tried writing them or looking them up. And that happens a lot. So we might learn a word and we have just a narrow understanding of it, like, okay, this thing means jaguchi. And that's just, it's really one connection that you're making, even if you can make that connection in the language. But it's still just only one connection. But now I've got something even stronger. I've got multiple connections that help me connect with this thing. And of course, I've learned this. This is one of the first kanji characters that children learn. It's just, again, like a very simple character like this, a square, basically, for mouth or some kind of hole or an entrance, something like that. So you can imagine, oh, look at that. So someone had the idea, like, that kind of looks like a snake mouth. So why don't we just call it like jaguchi in the same way? And so this is where, okay, now I feel even stronger that I understand the meaning of the word, and this is why I'm able to use something fluently, because I know it very well. And the secret or the trick here is trying to build more connections with the vocabulary and being able to do that in the language you're learning. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. But again, the basic idea is, like, if you can have a thing, and then you can connect that to the English word, or whatever language you're learning. So I'm learning Japanese. I've given you the English, like the way, like ja gucci over here. That's how you would read that. This one just by itself is like just kuchi. I remember teaching a guy that word, and he thought that was really funny. I won't go into why that is, but anyway, the point is, so jaguchi, I was able to understand it, and I just remembered the word. Some words, maybe I forget them immediately after I learn them. If I don't take some time and try to play with the word or think about other connections, something that can really help me understand it. And so for the Japanese example, it's often easy for me, once I see how it's written, I think, oh, okay, that makes sense. I can see it's like snake mouth. Like I understand why they would do that. There's a little story here that helps you understand and make connections with the word. But I also start thinking, like, I wonder what other things, like for example, let's say we have in English, you have the kind of, I'm going to draw kind of watering thing for watering flowers like this. This is called a watering can. Watering can, usually they're often made of plastic now, but years ago they were usually metal, and so we had the name watering can. And I was I was thinking, isn't that interesting? Like, so if this means faucet, if jaguchi means faucet, like, this is a slightly different thing. The shape here is different, and also there's no control here. So there's a difference between, like, a faucet in English, and this is the same in English as it would be in Japanese. This is what I'm thinking. So in English, a faucet is something you can control. So we can turn the faucet on or turn the faucet off. It's like you can imagine like a little block inside the faucet. So we open that and the water comes through, or we close that and the water can't come out. So that's what a faucet is. So the Japanese word jaguchi is referring to this. but it's a different word for this, just like it is in English, because it's a slightly different thing. So watering can over here, this is a slightly different thing here. We could have a watering can like this, or we could have the just kind of one opening on the end of a watering can like that. And so this here, like we might call that like a sprinkler head in English. So sprinkler head. And again, just like the head of something, just like my head here, we have the head of the watering can like that. So this is a sprinkler head or a shower head, same thing. So we're making a bunch of different little sprays for the water to come out. But this one is a different one. This is just kind of like an open watering can. Like we would just call this a spout. So this part here is spout, just like if you have a teapot, same idea. So we have our little teapot here. Put the handle on this side, coming down like that. So this part here is a spout. So this part is a spout in the same way you might have like a rain spout on the side of your house. So the water runs down off of a roof. This little kind of metal part here that sits under this is called the gutter. And then there's typically a little rain spout like this, a little pipe that brings the rain down. And this is also called a spout, all right? Now you see, I'm kind of jumping around here, but the point is to show that there are various connections that you make, and it's really the connections that help you understand things in the language and also develop fluency, because you know the word really well, all right? So the point is not just to know it like I know a translation, it's to understand the word so well you understand it without a doubt, okay? So what's interesting about this, so the Japanese version of this, like again, it's a different thing. Like this is like, what is that? Like a hasuguchi? I'm going to write that in English. I forget the kanji for that. Hasu. So it's hasuguchi in the same way. And hasu is a character for lotus, like the flower. So when, you can think about someone coming up with the idea, like in English, we might call that like a rose head, also in addition to a sprinkler head or a shower head. But the Japanese, it's thinking more, it looks like a lotus flower, which I'm not going to try to draw here very well, but you can imagine the kind of flower that comes out, pretty big thing, and it's got flower petals that come out like that. So a lotus head. And so as I'm getting different examples of these things, okay, jaguchi means a faucet, and we have like hasuguchi is a kind of shower head kind of thing. And if we just have this kind of spout here, then we would have, this is just like sosogiguchi. So gu is to pour. So sosogiguchi is to, yes, thank you, H. Ray. That's the character for hasu. Let me just write that right quick. I think, how do I write that? I'm going to write that badly like that. Basically, it's kind of like that. So anyway, the character for like, it's like hasuguchi or sosogiguchi or hebi, like this, like jaguchi. And so you can see like the character kuchi is in all three of those. And you think, okay, now I get it. Like kuchi must mean some kind of opening like this. So you see how all of these things come together, and it's not typically the first example you hear that really gets you the fluency in something. Because remember, we develop fluency over time. If I can erase a little bit of this here. Fluency is a process of erasing doubt over time. So the first time you hear something, you probably don't understand it very well. So this is, you can imagine like a little bit of understanding, but most of this it's still doubt. You're still unsure about how to use something, or maybe the pronunciation or something, you don't hear it very well. But as you learn more, as you get more examples, the doubt goes away and you develop fluency automatically, even before you speak, okay? So I'm here at the water fountain for this example when I'm just like learning this in real life. So I knew the word jaguchi. I saw that and I saw, oh my goodness, like that's really interesting. I had an aha moment where I'm making the connection between this character here and the word I already knew. So it's helping me understand the word better. I'm erasing more doubt, and now I feel very confident about using the word because now I actually understand what it means, not like I just kind of remembered the sound or the word or a translation. I understand what it means, all right? So without a doubt. Again, that's the whole point of developing fluency. And so what usually stops people from speaking is they only erase a little bit of the doubt. They know a translation or a definition of a word, but they don't really understand it very well. Okay? So I'll give an English example after I check comments very quickly, but let me know if this idea makes sense. Often, the first time you hear a word, you might not understand it completely. You might not really think about like how something works. You might not feel very confident about the word, but as you get more examples, and if you can do this actively, you're not kind of waiting. Like in this example for me, I learned the word jaguchi many years ago, and then only a few days ago, I learned the character for it. So you can imagine, like, it did not take me 10 years to learn that word. It's just how long it took me to get those examples. So if I could learn the word jaguchi and see the kanji for that, like one after the other, I would have been fluent much faster in that word. Does that make sense? So the idea is not like how much time you spend doing it, it's how quickly you can get these aha moments that help you understand things. So the point, again, erasing doubt as quickly as possible, and it usually happens by getting multiple examples of something. All right, so this is again connected to the previous video, how I was able to, or I am able to learn things in Japanese and develop fluency in Japanese without needing translations. Because again, I don't want to think through translations when I speak. So let me check comments, make sure anybody has any questions or comments over there. Oh no, ガリゾウのチンポがまだやってきて。あ、よかったね。私は元気で。Well, all right, well, let's see here. Nils or Annette, nice to see you there. Diana H. Ray, Tom, nice to see you there. MBO, hello. Ed Tom says hello. And we've got Joelman, hey there, nice to see you again. H. Ray, before Meiji period, we use Dragon's Mouth. Yeah, so like and I was kind of surprised, or like not really surprised, but I made another connection when I was thinking about this. So I live in Nagasaki, and we have like the Ja Odori, like the dragon dance, and dragon is like quite similar to snake in that way. So I thought it was interesting that we also have that same word, the same sound for that. I didn't know if that was the actual connection, but that was another connection I could make that helps me remember that. So just like Ja Odori for like Odoru is to dance. So just like having that kind of dance, I can also have like, oh, look at that. Hebi is the same thing. Okay. So yes, like H-Ray, you're very right. Yeah. So Tatsuno Kuchi the same way. So like just like having a dragon's head or Tatsugashi da ne, instead of a jaguchi. Yeah. So yes, thank you very much also for the Hasu kanji. Alfonso Liberal, I am back. Drew, nice to see you. Is it possible to get fluent by listening to podcasts, asks Eton. The point is not like listening or watching or reading or whatever you're doing. The point is, can you eliminate doubt? So if I only give you podcasts to listen to, if that clears up all of your doubt about how to say something, when is the right time to say something, is it appropriate for the situation, if you can get all of that from a podcast, great. But a lot of people do not. And the reason like young children get fluent is because we give them lots of different angles or different mediums or different media, to learn with. So like my children might watch something on TV, they might read a book, they might listen to something on the radio, they might hear me talking about something. It's all of these different angles, again, just like I'm showing here, it's different angles that help you understand something. So if I only said like, okay, children, you can only read books to learn English. That would be kind of stupid of me because you can't hear anything from a book. You should also be listening to examples and seeing how things are connected in this way. So me as a teacher for my kids, I don't want them to wait, like see, they learn a word like jaguchi, just like they know that word, but they don't know the kanji for that word. So they just know like, oh, this is a jaguchi, but they will make that connection when they see the kanji for that. And they will think, oh yeah, like they will have the same experience I did. But if I can give them that, and if I can close that gap by basically, helping them learn that faster, then I can get them fluent much faster. So you see how that works? So if connections get you fluent, then the faster you get those connections, the faster you get fluent. So that's the basic idea. Let's see if we missed anything over here. Jolman says, wonderful live. Thanks. I've been trying to understand for a while the word leverage, but I don't get it completely. Could you give us an example of the explanation to better understand the word? Okay. Yeah, that's related to this, Jolman. I can help you out with that. Now, this is actually an interesting concept that I've taught my own kids, and if you take your children to most parks, you might find a lever sitting there that you can use to teach this. But you don't really need one. You can do it with anything. But at the park, so let's say we go to the park with my kids. You've probably seen this before as some kind of little balancing thing like this. So this is called a seesaw, or a teeter-totter. You will hear different words for this. That's another reason to get many connections. You don't hear just one example or one way to say something. You hear many. So a teeter-totter, like something is kind of teetering like this. It means to move back and forth, to teeter like that. So a seesaw or a teeter-totter. When we talk about leverage, we're talking about how we can use like a small amount of energy to do something big. So let's say like I have me as a person here. There is like a really big rock that I want to move. Now I can't physically pick this up myself because it's too heavy. So if I just walk up to this rock and try to lift the rock, it will be too heavy for me. But if I have some leverage, I would be able to move that rock. So just like this teeter-totter here, so this teeter-totter or this seesaw is balanced. So typically you have one child on one side and one child sitting on the other. But you can change what we call here, this is called the fulcrum. The fulcrum is the space where we're kind of moving the weight around this. And so we can change where the fulcrum is to change how much leverage we have. So let's say I'm going to put myself in this rock. I'll move those over here. So if I have this really big rock here and myself over here, if I have the leverage is like me being able to use a lot of weight or move a lot of weight over here with only a little bit of weight here just because it's further away. So if I can sit up here on the top of this, I will push this large rock up into the air because really we've got like all of this weight plus the distance that I'm moving down this way to move the rock a little bit of distance up. So this is the idea of leverage. So this is a physical example of using leverage to move something. So I am not very strong and I'm not going to be able to lift a really heavy rock like this. But if I use a lever, so this idea, the name of this object is called a lever. So in just a kid's park where we have that balance, that's a teeter-totter or a seesaw. But the idea is a lever. So we're taking a small distance here around a fulcrum, and then if we can push down on this side, it will push up on this side over here, all right? So in the opposite way, like if I'm over here and like the fulcrum is over here and I'm trying to move that rock, it would be impossible. I can't press down here and then lift this rock up. So I have no leverage over here. So again, the idea, like right now I'm using leverage to move this thing because I can't just pick it up by myself. So I need a tool or something to help me, and that thing that helps me gives me leverage. Now we can take this idea and expand on it to have like leverage over another person, for example. So let's say I'm the boss of a company and I have some people that like, I want them to do something, like there's another company that's trying to, I don't know, like I want them to do something for me. And I say, well, like I'm not going to pay you guys if you don't do the work. So the payment is like the leverage to get them to do what I want them to do. Or if there's even like a bad situation, like let's say there's some like sexual harassment in a company. So the boss is like telling some secretary lady or something, for example, like we need to go out on a date together or I'm going to fire you. So they're trying to use kind of leverage in order to do something. The guy can't just ask the woman for a date. He has to try to use some leverage over her because she doesn't actually want to go out with him. Okay? So from this physical example of a lever, we get also more non-physical examples in the same way, but this is the idea. So having leverage means you're able to apply some additional power without having lots of extra work. Okay, so I'm not becoming stronger. All I'm doing is having a tool that allows me to do this. And so there is an idea that if you give someone a lever long enough, so if you give someone a lever long enough and a place to stand, so like a place to put that, you could move the earth. You could move the world. So imagine instead of a big rock, this is like the planet itself. So theoretically, it is possible for a person, if there was a lever long enough and a place to stand, one person could move the world in this way. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. That's the idea of a lever and the same idea for leverage. Okay. All right. See if we have any more questions before I give one last example here. Let's see. Vincente says, hello from Brazil. Like your examples, they make learning more fun. Glad to hear it. Yes, Annette, that's the idea. Anderson says, good night. Explain the about out. Please explain the about out. I don't know what that means. A fulcrum thing yet. Kozue says there's the same word kuchi in Japanese words, but English words are different. That makes me so hard to remember. Okay, now I thought someone might mention this. So typically, like English words can often have a story in the same way that Japanese words can have a story from the characters like that. It's not always like that, even for Japanese words. Even if you know a kanji, you look at something like, why does that thing mean this? But in the same way, like something, like let's say we have a word like monorail. So a word like monorail, or we have a word like bicycle. When I teach these words to my kids, I also explain to them like, look, there are kind of different pieces of this, and you can connect these things, or even just like rail by itself. So mono means one. If we have a tall rock standing by itself, we call that a monolith, or we could have monochromatic, meaning one color. So monochromatic, like chrome, like talking about different colors of something. So when you hear different examples, the first time you learn a word like monorail, you're just kind of connecting it. Like a child will hear monorail, and they might not think too deeply about what that means. But a parent or a good teacher can help them make extra connections. So we see a picture of a train, like riding on this one rail over here, and the dad says, oh, hey, that's a monorail. But then mom says, oh, look, we can also have like a monolith, like one long stone. And so the child makes that connection. Oh, I guess mono means one. Pretty easy. And so the same thing like hearing a word like bicycle, where we've got bi meaning two and cycle meaning circle. So it's interesting a child could understand that more easily, like, oh, look, it's two cycles. So there might be other cycles like the cycle of the seasons, like spring to summer to fall to winter and back to spring again. Okay, so in English, we do have a lot of examples where you could have pieces of things like this, like prefixes or suffixes or other root words, or you could even have the kind of story of how a word develops. I've told the story before about the word maverick. So a maverick is a person, like maybe you've heard of the movie like Top Gun, Maverick. So maverick means to do your own thing, to be different from other people. But if you take, again, a little bit of time and learn the story behind something or the evolution of a word or the origin of it, and this is why I try to take more time when I teach these things, because if you learn it once and you learn it correctly the first time, you make some good connections, then you don't need to spend time reviewing it again. You just know it and you can use it fluently. So in the case of Maverick, I've told this story, I think, a few times on like in emails or lessons or whatever, and maybe even on YouTube as well. But there was a rancher, like a cowboy rancher, many years ago, named Maverick. That was his last name. I think it was his last name. And most people, like cowboys, they would take kind of like a hot iron like this, and they would brand their cattle. So they would take like the hot iron, and you would put your mark, like it's like a cattle brand on someone like that. B-R-A-N-D. So that says, okay, this is my cow. I put my mark on my cow. So it's a brand. And now this is where we also get the idea of having a brand like Starbucks or Coca-Cola or whatever. So many years ago, people didn't have specific brands of stuff. It wasn't like a brand of salt or a brand of sugar or whatever. You just go buy some sugar. Nobody really cared. But companies started thinking, oh, like we can actually make our company more important by kind of creating a brand about that, the same way you put a brand on a cow. Anyway, you notice I'm helping you make these connections as I do that. I'm doing that intentionally. Makes sense? Does it make sense? Hopefully. So when you're talking about like the brand of something like that, you're putting brands on cattle. This guy Maverick, I think it was like Samuel Maverick, maybe? I forget his name. Somebody can look that up. It's pretty easy. Anyway, the important part is his last name is Maverick. And he decided, well, if everyone else is putting brands on their cows, I'm going to not put my brand on my cow, and then any cow that does not have a brand is my cow. So maybe he gets some extra cows that way. But because he does that, he's doing the opposite of what most people do. And so that idea of doing the opposite of what most people do, this gives us the idea of a maverick. So if we talk about the word maverick, like it's not even like a capital name. Maverick. So in the character, so Tom Cruise plays, his name is Maverick in the movie because he's trying to do stuff differently than other people. So that's a very easy way for the movie to tell people that this character is going to be different or do things differently than the other characters in the movie. Okay? So again, there are different ways to make these connections with English, and I've given you many of them in this video. So you can look at the actual story of a word from the word pieces, or you can try to get the origin of the word by understanding how it works. I also made a video a while ago. It's a prompt for ChatGPT. So just search my YouTube channel for ChatGPT, and then you can find that it's a specific prompt that helps you understand words this way. You can tell ChatGPT this, and it will give you, help you understand words in the same way by helping you make many connections with them. Okay, so remember, even in English, this is still possible. Languages might have slight differences, like there are kanji characters for Japanese, but not for English. But you can see this basically looks like, it's basically like a kanji character. It's a story that helps you understand when you know these pieces and you hear other words that also use those same pieces, it helps you understand them. Just like we have like nantokaguchi, like hasaguchi or Jaguchi, you learn, oh, like kuchi or guchi must mean some kind of entrance or hole or exit or something like that. And you're understanding it all in Japanese, okay? Or all in the language you're learning. So yes, it is possible to do this in English. It's just about getting the different examples, trying to get different angles and help you understand those things. Let's see. Annette says, it is how pressure. What do you mean pressure? What are you talking about? Let me know. Hitchum says hello from Morocco. Jolman says thanks a lot. I like all the connections that are formed through the explanation. Really interesting. Yes. So your mind likes working this way and learning this way. That's why you feel that aha moment when you understand something. You feel good about it. You remember it, and then you're able to use it fluently. Okay. So it's the purpose of this video is really showing you that fluency is about developing connections, and as you develop those connections, you erase doubt. When doubt is gone, you speak fluently. Cam says, good morning, nice to see you again. Asoda says, hi, is there any good way to keep kids speaking English in class? To keep kids speaking English in class? I don't know what do you mean specifically, keep them speaking? Like in a classroom to make them speak? So for me, like I don't, when I'm teaching, I don't worry about getting others to speak. I just try to make the language understandable. And when children have aha moments, that's when they start speaking naturally. So I'm not worried about like, hey, repeat after me. I want to keep giving you connections until the child or children feel confident about it, and then they start speaking. So repeating after a teacher doesn't help you understand anything better. It's just maybe it helps you practice pronunciation or something, but the understanding is the real thing that allows you to speak. Because if you don't have confidence in your words, you don't have confidence in your English, then you're not going to speak. Okay, so that's what stops most people from speaking. So they know a lot of English, but it's usually at a lower level or a more basic level. They don't have all these connections in mind when they think about words. They're trying to learn usually as many words as possible, but they don't really know those words very well. So for me, I'd rather have a smaller vocabulary that I know very well than know many, many words and not really understand them or feel confident about using them. So my advice generally about speaking in the classroom is that the teacher's job is to make the language understandable so the children want to speak. So if I'm teaching people, I'm giving them a bunch of examples and until they say, oh, I got it. Oh, now I can use that word. So I don't know exactly what your question is, but speaking or exactly what you mean by your question, but in general, trying to help people understand things until they have no doubt is what I do, and then people speak. Okay, so I'm not spending my time, even in the classroom, I don't spend a lot of time trying to get people to speak. Etam says, how to stop worrying about getting into conversation with a friend. Again, like the worry, this is just another example of doubt that you feel before you speak. So if you think you will not be prepared or you think you will not be ready in a conversation, then you won't want to speak with people. So it's much better, just like the same advice I just gave about teaching practice, get lots of good examples that help you make connections and erase all the doubt. So this is what we do in Fluent for Life. You can certainly do it by yourself as well. It just takes more time and you have to think about how to do it and how to get those kind of examples. But that's the idea. So any person who's worried about speaking like in a classroom or speaking in a meeting or speaking in any situation, if you're unsure, if you're uncertain, if you have doubt about what you want to say, then you're not going to speak. So the answer is not to try to speak more. Why don't you try erasing your doubt first? Like that's the kind of opposite. Like be the maverick. I should call instead of calling my program Fluent for Life, I should call it like the Maverick system because it's like the opposite of what everybody else does. So most people are trying to speak more or learn more, but you already know a lot of words, especially for the people that I help. So why not erase your doubt instead, and then you will feel much more confident about speaking. Okay, so don't try to learn more. You already know enough. If you can understand what I'm saying, but you still can't speak, you already know enough. But again, the problem is you just don't know it well enough. You need to make more connections, really understand things well, and then you will feel confident speaking. It's a much faster and easier way than just trying to learn more or forcing yourself to speak if it doesn't feel comfortable for you. Ikram says, hello everyone from Uzbekistan, and MBO says, why phrasal verbs are hard to understand, how to get them fluent get fluent with them. Well, this is what we do in the visual guide to phrasal verbs. Also in Fluent for Life, we do the same thing. Again, like these examples here, you don't want to just memorize a list of phrasal verbs. You want to make connections and really understand how a verb and a preposition like stand and up can work together to make like stand up instead of stand over or stand between or something like that. So as you see those connections, and it's easy to do that with phrasal verbs, you will become more fluent in using these things. You can search our channel for that, or you can also click on the links in the description below this video to learn more about Fluent for Life. Annette says, I mean, the word leverage, it's the same how pressure. Well, no, leverage. Leverage is a similar idea about pressure. Like I could be putting pressure, like the boss is putting pressure on someone. That's one way of describing leverage. But it also could just mean like using a tool where you don't need to put more force or more money or something like that, but you're able to do something more effectively. So it could have a kind of negative meaning or a positive meaning depending on the situation. So it's a little bit like pressure, but it's more about like multiplying your ability to do something. So if I just say, hey, I want you to do something for me, and I don't give you a good reason to do it, then you're probably not going to do that thing. But if I say, hey, I have your child over here in my basement, then that's leverage. I mean, it's like horrible leverage, but that's an example of how that might work. So in that case, it is a form of pressure, but it's more like pressuring the person. It's not like when you think about leverage as a physical force, it's different from pressure, because it's not like pressure would be more like if I have a bunch of water or air and I press that to make something else move. That's a different kind of physical movement. But again, it's a similar idea. You can see how these things are connected. Let's see, how to use complex sentences, please teach us. So again, if you're not understanding individual words or phrases, it will be more difficult for you to have complex sentences and speak for a long time, that kind of thing. So think about where you get stuck. If you're still not using basic things well, get more connections with the basic things. If you know basic things well, but you don't know how to connect them very well, then you need more examples of seeing how natives do that. But this is what we do in Fluent for Life. So whether you learn that with us or you get it from other examples, I've talked about making complex sentences on the channel, so you can just search for that, but that's the basic idea. So H-Ray again, Maverick equals an unbranded calf or yearling, an unorthodox method. Yes, but again, I don't want to just give you a definition of the word because it's not really going to stay with you. But if you hear a good story, then you think, okay, now I get it. I understand that was a guy doing like a smart thing by not branding his cows. And so now we take that story and it becomes a kind of different thing. And you can see how the language changes over time as you get more examples and make more connections. So typically, the better speakers have the ability to make more connections, or they have seen more connections with words. They understand things better. They have less doubt. They feel more confident, so they speak more fluently. Soda again says, thank you. Yes, that's what I mean. I was hoping they can speak more English instead of their first language during English class. They are all beginners. You should give them Frederick if they're beginners. Even non-beginners can use the app, but certainly for kids, the purpose of the app is to help people understand the language in the language. If you make the language difficult as a teacher, and I don't know how you're teaching, but like in general, teachers are very quick to blame students for not speaking. So the teacher says, well, I just gave you some phrases, just repeat those after me. But the smart teacher, or the kind of the teacher who understands human nature, should know that people don't like making mistakes, especially in front of other people. So if I have a classroom of students and I want to get them up, like stand up now and repeat some French back to me, and the child is going to say it badly and they're worried about their pronunciation, or they're worried about their friends laughing at them, then of course it's going to be a very difficult situation. But if you as a teacher, if you understand that that's probably going to happen, then it becomes your job to make the language understandable and erase any doubt that people have about using it. So if I'm a classroom teacher, I'm going to be spending most of my time just making the language very simple, very easy to understand, so that I might ask a very basic question and the child naturally responds because they know the answer. So if I've given them, the examples or making a bunch of connections like I am here, then you should feel more confident about responding or answering my questions. Okay, so I don't have to ask people or make it a big deal, okay, everybody stand up. I can just say, make some examples up here and then make the conclusion so obvious. I'll give you an example of that in just a moment. But let me just kind of do that now. Then I'll answer these questions, and hopefully this should make it better or easier to understand the process from a learner's perspective, especially a child or a beginner in class. But if you're looking for just like a way to help them understand the language by themselves, give them Frederick. Let them play around with that. You can start using it for free. Just click on the link in the description below this video and have them start using that. Let's see. And Annette says, I translate the word leverage. Now I know it. I thought it was the same how the word pressure. Yes. So I'll give you an example right now about how that works and why it's important to understand things over time. If you can do it quickly, that's great. But to understand things over time in the language you're learning. Etam says, what is the main habit that leads to the quick English fluency incredibly quickly? It's eliminating doubt. How quickly can you eliminate doubt? That's the idea. So if you're not worried about something, if you're sure about how to use language, then you will speak fluently. If you're unsure, you will not speak. That's the idea. How long does it take to become fluent in English? I mean, it's more about like how quickly can you erase doubt. So let's look at an example that ties all of these questions together. I don't know if I've taught this I've taught kind of similar examples, but I thought I would do one in English with a word that maybe some of you may know, some of you may not. Okay. Let me give you an example. Dwelling. So this is an English word, the word dwelling, and there are two ways I could teach that to you. The first way is I could give you a translation. So here's a word in English, and I give you like, here's the Chinese word, or here's the Hindi, or here's the German, or here's the French, or whatever. And I give you a definition just like Annette was looking up, like leverage equals pressure or something like that, okay? So you could get that, but it's not going to be a very good way for you to really understand the word and feel confident about using it. All right, so you're going to be unsure. Even if you get a definition, you might think that's a fast way to learn. Okay, here's the word dwelling. I get an example of that or one word for that in Chinese or Japanese or French or Spanish or whatever, and now I know it. So maybe you can recognize that word when you hear it from other people, but remember our example about eliminating doubt. So you just get a definition of something and maybe you understand that a little bit. Maybe it's a pretty easy word. Maybe dwelling is easy for you. Maybe it's not. If you don't know what this is, don't go looking for a definition. I'll help you understand it in this video. But it's important to see the principle of how you should be learning. So again, we have the, maybe you understand something quite well, but there's probably going to be some doubt about how to use the word. Because again, it's a single connection to understand that thing. So you got, again, Chinese or Hindi, whatever the language is you're translating from, and it's not really helping you feel 100% confident about the word. Okay. Now, let's look at it from a different perspective, how we might understand this word in English. Again, we'll keep our little doubt example here. Now, I could go into a lot more detail about this, but just using the example of dwelling by itself, I'm going to start drawing some pictures and see if you can tell me what it means. All right? So here's our first picture. That's a dwelling. Dwelling. Okay. If you think you know what dwelling means, again, if you already know the definition, I don't need like a long explanation of it. But if you think you know what it means, go ahead and write it down. So, Nils, Annette means house. So dwelling means house. Let's see. There's another example of dwelling. Here's another example of a dwelling. These are supposed to be ants over here. I'll just put ant. Little ants over here. It's another example of a dwelling. Put a little dog over here. Another example of a dwelling. Put a cave over here. It's another example of a dwelling. Any ideas? Are you feeling a bit more confident about what dwelling means as I continue to give examples? Here's like a alien spaceship. It's another kind of dwelling. You don't know it in German? Remember, the point is not to get a translation, it's to understand something without a doubt, to feel very confident that you understand what something means. And if you only get one example, just like the Jaguchi example I gave at the beginning of this video, I might know something a little bit, but I'm still going to have doubt about how to use it. So I could give you more examples, but the basic idea of dwelling is that it's just a place where something lives. Okay? And as you see examples like, oh, okay, like dwelling means house. Your brain is trying to make connections with a word, trying to understand something, all within the language. And this is how your brain is thinking when you're trying to learn words in your native language as well. But again, like as you get more examples of something, this is where your brain really starts to understand things. You really feel confident that you know what something means. So dwelling, you might think, okay, that's like a person's house. But here you see an example of ants. So that's not people, but it's still an example of a dwelling. So this ant hill right here, this is another example of a place where something lives, a dwelling. Okay, so something might dwell in a cave, something might dwell in a spaceship or a doghouse or a tent or an apartment. I know these are not the best pictures, but hopefully the point makes sense. I think I saw like Jonas said accommodation, something like that. So the same kind of thing, like you wouldn't really call this an accommodation, but it kind of could be. But again, the point is not just to have a rigid, fixed definition or translation of a word. It's to develop a strong understanding by getting multiple examples over time, okay? And the faster you get these examples, so if I only tell you one thing and then 1 year later I give you another one, that's a pretty slow way to learn. But if I can give you all of them at the same time, then you will feel much more confident that you understand the word, okay? So as you hear, if I could give you even more examples, like think about like, you know, here's like an underwater, you know, you got some fish swimming around here, like it's like a coral reef or something. That's also a dwelling. It's a place where fish live. Okay, so where do you dwell? Like I dwell in, you know, Chicago, or I dwell in wherever the place is you live, or I dwell in my house, or my dwelling is the place where I live. Okay, so it's not just me. And again, we could go even deeper into words like dwell, like you could dwell on something for a while, to dwell on an idea. Like let's say I fail a test and I dwell on that for a long time. It's like I'm living on that idea for a long time. I feel very like uncertain and I feel bad that I made a mistake. I'm dwelling on that. So people might give you advice like don't dwell in the past. Don't dwell in the past. Like don't think about sad things or disappointing things or frustrations that happen in the past. Don't dwell in the past or don't dwell on that. So that particular memory or something like that. But do you see how this works? Like your brain should be getting these aha moments as I'm telling you this, not because you're speaking, but because you understand the word better. Okay, so you could be dwelling like right here, like you're like right now, like we're kind of like dwelling on this moment. You know, we're living here, we're thinking about something for a longer period of time. Now I could use different words, but I thought this word is a good example of something that's a little bit more advanced. So there's actually I believe still a magazine called Dwell. which is just talking about different houses, but it's a slightly more advanced word, so it's like nicer houses. So anyway, like again, it's not just hearing something. The worst way you could learn is through a translation, because it's not really helping you understand the word and it's not making you feel confident about using it. So if your goal is to speak confidently, it's multiple examples really helping you understand something all in the language, okay? So the technical term for this, I call this learning English as a first language rather than learning it as a second language, but the point is just making connections. Okay, when you're able to understand something all in the language without needing a translation, it's the connections that make it strong and memorable, and that's what develops the fluency. Okay, so hopefully you feel more confident. Like when you understand the word now, you will hear people like, oh, okay, someone said dwell, I understand that, or I could understand the physical use of it or the figurative use of it, or I could think about different dwellings. Like where does an ant dwell, or what planet, or something like that. Okay, so it's just one example, but this works with anything you might be trying to learn. So it doesn't matter if it's grammar or even pronunciation or phrases, not just individual words, or not even like something you can see like this, but it's more about getting multiple examples of seeing those things happen. Okay, so not just hearing one use or one translation, but getting lots of different connections that help you understand that and eliminate the doubt. Yes, as Jonas says, the aha moment. Greetings, English coach. Is it dwelling or welling in pronunciation? It's dwelling. It's not a silent D. Dwelling. Or at least that's the American English pronunciation. I'm not familiar. Maybe in Australia they pronounce it differently or something. I'm pretty sure it's dwelling for everybody, though. Rolla says, where do you live? I live in Nagasaki, Japan. Let's see, 5 years since I know that word. Since you learned it, but how do I get these examples of a new word? Just get more examples of it. So either you are doing this or a teacher is doing it for you. A good teacher should help you make these connections. This is what we do in Fluent for Life. This is the whole purpose of the program, to help you make these connections so that before you speak, you feel confident about expressing yourself. So if you're trying to do this on your own, then you would just get more examples of things, like look up what is a dwelling, get more examples of a dwelling, and you're trying to teach your brain what something means. You're trying to eliminate any doubt. For example, does a dwelling mean only something people can live in? Or could an animal also have a dwelling? And if you learn, like this one, I'm giving you these specific examples because I know your brain will be thinking about these questions. So I'm eliminating the doubt for you without you having to spend a lot of time researching or thinking what examples do I need to answer these questions? So you might think house, okay, it's not only a house, here's an apartment, here's a tent, here's something much different. So your brain is now trying to think, how do I integrate all these things into one meaning? And okay, it just means a place where something lives. So as you get that over time, that's how you do this. So either you will do this by yourself or you get someone like me to help you do it. It's just, but either way, the more examples you get, the faster you get fluent. That's the basic idea. And again, Annette says, the pictures are great. Eglin says, I dwell here with you right now to be able to learn English. That's right. This is a great way to learn a new word. And again, this is what Frederick does as well. So it's the same kind of idea where we give you multiple images instead of just one or a translation. So as you play with the app, you get to see different pictures like this. We have 4 different ones for each picture. So the original app, we only had one because I just wanted to release it very quickly, but I went back and made 8,000 more, or 8,000 total images that go in there. So if you look for a word, even something simple like a cat or a dog, it's pretty easy to understand. But even something like capture or justice or apocalypse or something a bit more difficult that isn't just a physical word, we can help you understand that by giving you multiple examples. But that's the basic idea. Let's see. I dwell in a cave like Hercules. So you won't recommend to read a textbook and memorize those vocabularies. Again, asking about a textbook or a podcast or a video or whatever, the medium is not the problem. The problem is, do the people understand the information or not? So if I give you, like, it doesn't matter. If I give you an English lesson and I just say, like, here's a translation. So the textbook is like translation, English word, translation, English word over here. It doesn't matter if I'm giving you this in a book or a podcast or, whatever the thing is. Like, the point is, do you understand the information or not? Do you have doubt or not? And so for most people learning, they know a lot, but they still have a lot of doubt over here. That's why they can't speak. Okay? So they know something a little bit, like they can understand what I'm saying right now, but they can't make those same sentences because they have lots of doubts about individual vocabulary or grammar or pronunciation or whatever. Okay? The way people teach in a textbook is different than how natives really speak. So natives can switch the topic, or they speak quickly, or they blend their words together, they mumble, they're not trying to speak clearly like I'm speaking right now. So it's a different way of communicating. And if you're not prepared for that, then of course you will feel much more uncertain when you speak. All right. So the point is not to get like 100 examples of every word. The point is to erase your doubt as quickly as possible. Now, maybe that happens with the first thing you get, or it takes 1 or 2 or 3 more examples, but generally the doubt gets erased over time. And so how quickly you can do that is the key. It's not how long you spend, like how long does it take to get fluent. The question is how quickly can you eliminate doubt. So if I have an hour-long lesson and I only I just help you understand some translations, then I've basically wasted an hour of your time. So you might think like, wow, I've been spending every day trying to learn more, but I don't feel more fluent. And it's because you still have doubt. That's the basic idea. So if you don't remove all of the doubt, if you still feel uncertain when you speak, this is the problem. All right. So it's not about learning more words. It's about taking the words that you already know and feeling confident about them. If you don't feel confident about your vocabulary now, why would you want to learn more words? Okay, it's much better to get like many examples of the words you already know. All right, so that's another reason I think MBO just asked that about how people forget their words when they speak. That's the reason. So if you have doubt about words or you don't really understand them very well, then of course you're going to forget your words when you speak. But if you continue to hear more examples and you feel much more confident about those things over time, then you won't forget the words. You will remember them very easily. Now, of course, sometimes everybody forgets words, even native speakers forget words, but it's forgetting words for a different reason than they don't actually know what the word means or they don't understand the vocabulary. Let's see. And George says, really, can I ask someone, where do you dwell? Does that sound weird? Yes. So you can ask them that in it's a more advanced word. But so this is why you won't typically hear people in everyday conversation saying where do you dwell? But it might, in a fantasy movie, you might say oh, I dwell in a forest or something like that. So it's a slightly more educated or advanced way of just saying, where do you live? But again, this is another good example where as you get your questions answered about that, okay, can I use this word in a conversational setting or a business setting or whatever? Will it sound natural? So as you get answers to those questions, then you feel more confident about using it. So now I'm worried if I use this word, this sounds like an interesting word, but I don't want to use it in the wrong way. But you can talk about that, where do you dwell? And again, getting more examples of sentences where people would use this is another good idea. I'm not trying to make this a long video about the word dwelling, but hopefully you get the point. So here you're understanding this. This is kind of the first level. Maybe after that you get some more examples of situations or sentence examples where you might learn it. But the point is you can understand something in English. That's the first thing. So most people think it's not possible to learn in English, but this is how you do it. Okay. So hopefully that's making that point. All right. My dwelling is a mess from the party last night. Very good. Hello. It's an explanation from drawing so I can understand it well. Yes. So a lot of people when they see things like that, and even if you can't see this, you could maybe imagine a story or get many different examples that still make it possible for you to understand this. Keiko says, hello, Teacher Drew. I have a bit of a strange question today. Every language has a standard accent, doesn't it? I know the standard accents for BE and Japanese, but I'm not sure about American English. I would just watch the news if you're looking for that kind of like standard, maybe Midwestern accent, that kind of news way of talking. But America is a large place, and even in England, like they might kind of, I don't know, there's kind of, people argue about that in England about like what is a good pronunciation or whatever. But the point is not like, I mean, maybe you want to have a certain pronunciation, but it's always a good idea to listen to many different speakers. That way you're prepared for lots of different accents. So the key is getting deep into every word, asks Kirby. It's not about like getting deep into the word, it's just eliminating any doubt. So if you have a question about what something means, then get that question answered. So either a teacher can do that for you or you will have to do that yourself. But again, you won't speak well if you have doubts when you speak. It's really the doubt that stops you at the moment you try to speak. It's not like, oh, no, I don't have enough words or I don't get enough speaking practice or something like that, because you already know a lot. This is not advice for beginners where like, okay, I want you to just start speaking right now. The point is really understand something very well, and that could happen very quickly. So maybe you get one example and you really understand something very quickly right from that. And then maybe you get a few more example sentences or something. But just getting a translation and repeating a word again and again is not going to help you get fluent in that thing, because it doesn't erase doubt. Each time you repeat a word, you're not learning it in a new way. You're not understanding it better. You're just repeating that thing. So you need to get multiple varied examples of how the word works. And that's why I give you multiple examples, different examples of how the word works. I don't just say, here's dwelling, and here's the word in German or whatever your language is, and then just repeat that again and again. Because you will get stuck in conversations. You will be worried, like, okay, well, how do I use this word? Okay, so don't worry about like taking a word. I'm trying to make this approach very simple. The basic idea is just eliminate doubt. So if you have a question about something, answer the question. That's it. If you don't know how to pronounce something, hear some different people pronouncing it so you know how to pronounce it. Okay, so eliminate the doubt, and that's what will help you speak. The point is not to get hundreds of examples of vocabulary. It's just to understand which one is, or like what is correct or what I could use in that situation. XDL says, W from XDL, randomly seeing you on YouTube. Haven't seen you for a while. Well, welcome back. Oscar says, we must be focused on fluency instead of accuracy. Well, it's really the same thing. Like when we talk about accuracy, it's more about, I mean, there's the accuracy of saying something that's really good for that situation, but there's also accuracy in how we feel about the way we speak. So if I'm not accurate in my pronunciation, then people will think I'm saying a different word, or they won't understand me, or there will be some other problem. So again, I have to eliminate the doubt, whatever that is. So it's not really about like accuracy, but the ability to speak comes from you eliminating doubt, because if you feel unconfident about something, you won't speak. Okay, so that's the basic idea. It's not about like you have to get 100 examples of every word to understand it. It's just when you understand the word, move on to the next word. That's fine. You get 2 or 3 examples or 10. It depends on the word. Some people, like, it also depends on the teacher. You know, if you're getting help from someone, hopefully the teacher knows how to answer these questions, you know, that you might be having. Okay, but that's the basic idea. Just remove the doubt. All right, definitely. No doubt about it, 100% correct. Eklund says, my dwelling is my home. Yes, correct. Which anime is the most popular in JP? One Piece, Dragon Ball. By the way, a fan of Luffy, just a little curious. I don't know. I mean, those are all popular here. I don't know what's the most popular right now. I don't know, and I don't really watch a lot of anime, and I'm not... See, most of the stuff I watch is like with my kids. So I watch like Purikua and Oshiritante and like stuff for little kids. You know, I'm watching like Okasan Show in the morning. So these are shows for like little kids. So I don't, and even cartoons. Like I don't watch like really One Piece or any of that. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are rankings of what's selling or what's most popular. Like recently, it was what was that, like Kimetsu no Yaiba, or I forget what was that. I don't know if that's popular anymore or not, or like Spy Family is another one. I don't know what's popular. Just look it up. And Agnes says that word so advanced, dwell. Yeah, it's actually not very advanced. It's just, I mean, it's actually a quite simple word. It's just, I chose this word because I wanted to show you that it is possible to learn things, even advanced vocabulary, in English. And it's easier, obviously, if I could, if I wanted to teach you a more advanced thing or something that's more figurative, I might need some more examples. But the basic idea is still there. But yes, I mean, now that you know the word, you will probably hear it more often. Maybe you will see it in magazines or something. You will think, and the word has been there all the time, but you just weren't ready for it. But now you will be. Isn't that interesting? All right, I think that's the end of the video, but hopefully if you watch this video and the previous one where I'm talking about how to learn without translating, both of these should give you more insight into how to learn. So whether you're learning with me or someone like me, or you're learning by yourself, just eliminate the doubt. This is the same way I'm trying to do this with Japanese. And so often what happens, I get these aha moments when I'm not like intentionally trying to do it. Many times I do, I'm like, okay, how do you do this? I want to get more examples, and I'm actively trying to eliminate the doubt. But sometimes, like the Jaguchi example that I gave earlier in this video, it's just kind of something happened and I wanted to eliminate the doubt about that. But it happened automatically. I didn't really prepare for that. I just saw the example of the kanji and that's how I learned it. But the goal, again, is not to try to memorize a bunch of examples or try to get thousands of examples of stuff. It's just to eliminate doubt as quickly as possible so that you feel confident speaking. That's the whole word. All right, that's the whole idea. And then Jonas again, you look very energetic, English coach. That's really awesome. Do you do any specific diet? Not really. Whatever my wife gives me. For, sometimes I'll go out for lunch, I guess, but often I get dinner at home, and I don't know. I don't do anything fancy. Try to exercise a little bit, but I should probably do more. Maybe not have like an ice cream at the end of the evening or whatever if I want to not be too fat, but I don't know. I'm okay. Canaro says, hi, Drew. I wonder if you ever use the word ajar. Sure. I mean, there's actually a pretty it's a pretty funny like comedian joke about this. Like there were two guys. They were I think they were like, I don't know, drinking or smoking or something like that. And they were just sitting out by their car, and the car kept on saying, like, the door is ajar, the door is ajar, the door is ajar. And the guys were like, how can a door be ajar? So that for people who don't understand, so the English word that Canaro just gave me, so ajar means open slightly. So it's not like gaping open, but it could be just open. And it's better to see a bunch of examples. Like you go to Google Images and do search for ajar, and like it might actually give you some pictures of like a jar, like a jar. So this thing here is called jar, a jar. But ajar means something is open. So there was a computer it was like a more expensive car, and the car was saying, the door is ajar, the door is ajar, the door is ajar. And so they were trying to think, how can a door, like a car door or whatever, equal a jar? How does that work? So they weren't making the connection that like the door is open a little bit. That's what the computer was saying. But it's, so there is, sometimes you will hear things like a physical thing being open like that. But that would be usually more in like a technical or a professional situation rather than like, I left my door ajar, or I left my window ajar when I went out of my house today. Like, people wouldn't typically use that word, but you will hear it used. All right, let's see any final questions over here. Yes, George says the butt detective. Yes, so Oshiri Tante is, my daughters enjoy that show. Eunice says, good for you. And Nils says, Annette, look at the children's series, Nils Holgersson. It was my favorite series as a child. Ah, okay, that's where you get your name from. All right. Well, if I'm trying to learn German, then I will start watching that show. Anyway, remember, the point is not to just rehearse a lot or practice speaking or do all that. Just eliminate the doubt. When you feel confident, then you will speak. It's really that simple. If you'd like to learn more about this and how we help you do that, you can click on the links in the description below this video, and have a fantastic day. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.